So in this module, what we're going to do is we're going to tie together a whole bunch of ideas from earlier in the year, and we're going to use them to solve a really big range of problems. It is when the Regents geometry exam comes out, almost all of the time, this is now the 6-point question is the kind of question we're going to tackle this module. And I think it's great because it's a problem that, as I say, grabs a whole bunch of topics from throughout the year. So if you're able to do well on this problem, it proves that you understand a lot of geometric concepts. And so the first test that I'm having you do today is filling out some reference sheets, just so you've got them by your side when you're tackling these problems. And let me show you what they look like. So here is the Cartesian plane formula reference sheet. And this is going to be talking about the slope formula, the distance formula, and the midpoint formula. So in this column, you're going to write down what those formulas are. And you'll see that's the smallest one of the boxes, as it turns out. How can you remember it? What I want you to do with this is I want you to imagine that someday I'm going to give you a pop quiz where I give you a sheet of paper that's like this and like, fill this out. You've got 30 seconds. And I want you to go, here's the slope formula, here's the distance formula. Oh, I don't remember the midpoint formula. Oh gosh, okay, what do I remember about midterms? Oh, and what you remember about midpoints is going to help you build the midpoint formula. And so what I want you to put in this box is kind of the ideas that let you build the midpoint formula. Okay, we're going to go through each one of these formulas in its own video, so don't stress out about that. The last column is going to be what is it useful for? And so we don't just memorize these three formulas just because we need something to test you on. These three formulas are actually really useful for solving geometry problems. So we just need to remember what calculating slopes, what that information gives us, how we can use that information to solve problems. How can the distance formula, knowing the distance between 2 points, help us? How can knowing what the midpoint of the line segment that connects 2 points is? And so that's going to go in the what is it useful for column. And once again, this is going to help us when we tackle the big problems we're going to tackle this module. The second form is going back to the quadrilateral reference sheet we filled out back in probably it was November by this point, or at least part of it. And so for a parallelogram, a rectangle, a rhombus, and a square, there are different rules that we could go through to prove, if we had a quadrilateral, how could we prove that it was a parallelogram? Well, there were a bunch of different strategies for that. A bunch of different strategies for proving something was a rectangle or a rhombus or a square. And what this is going to lead up to is the kind of problems we're going to be able to really handle at the end of this module is using this quadrilateral reference sheet information, except that we're going to be able to answer a new sort of question, which is, here are the coordinates of 4 points. I want you to prove that those 4 points form a rectangle, but not a square. Okay, so how can you prove that the figure get by connecting those points together satisfies the conditions of a rectangle, but doesn't satisfy the conditions of a square? And the answer that we're going to discover over the course of this module is that we're going to be able to prove these facts and disprove other facts by using the slope formula, the distance formula, and the midpoint formula. Going to be awfully handy for us. All right, so have that printed out and be ready to fill it out as we go through the next batch of videos.